I'll call to order the July 15th, 2024 meeting of the Design Review Committee. I'll let members and staff introduce themselves.
Martha Smirsky, member.
Benjamin
Eric
Cheney,
Roberts, member.
William Russell, member.
Benjamin Cheney, member.
Meredith Crandall, staff.
At this time, I'll let Meredith provide an overview of the remote meeting procedures and process.
I will try and keep this very brief because here's Liz. Our only remote attendees right now are committee members. Okay, so there we go. All right, so for anyone attending tonight's Design Review Committee meeting via ORCA Media or watching the meeting, you can participate in the discussion via the Zoom platform through either video or telephone access options. You can either type this link into your web browser and I'll get a notification that you want to come into the meeting, or you can dial this phone number here and when prompted, put in this meeting ID. And again, I'll get a little notice that you want to get into the meeting. If anyone is trying either of these options and is having problems, please email me at mcrandall@montpelier-vt.org. I will be monitoring my email throughout the meeting. For anyone who does attend via Zoom, turning your video on is optional. We do ask that you keep your microphone on mute when you're not speaking. This will help reduce background noise. And finally, please reserve the Zoom chat function for troubleshooting or logistics questions only. Any substantive questions or comments should be made by raising your hand and waiting for the chair to call on you. In the event the public is unable to access tonight's meeting, it will need to be continued to a time and place certain. Thank you. And I'll hand the meeting back over to the chair.
All right. Do I have a motion to approve the agenda?
This is Martha.
Eric moves.
One of them seconded, it
Yeah,
seems
I'll have
like.
Eric second.
I have no comments.
Got to vote.
Oh, sure. Do we, is there a vote to begin the meeting?
I move to.
But we have
I
to
say
move
yes. Let's go.
Move to begin the meeting, accept the agenda, whatever we need.
That's a yes.
That's a yes. It's great.
Yep.
We have Liz on too now. So Liz and
Yes, I agree.
Start the meeting. Here we go. So we have 4 Langdon Street, revised parklet for Bent Nails Bistro. You want to come tell us all about it, Joe?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, don't touch any buttons.
No, I don't touch any of it.
Awesome.
So there's thanks to Meredith, the email quoted from Corey.
Yep.
Discussing, since we couldn't put it on the bridge, there's a couple of pictures there. So essentially we'll be covering up the triangular painted area right in front of 4 Langdon Street, and that leaves acceptable distance to the sidewalk according to him. So structure's totally different. It's gonna be a wood frame deck, pressure treated decking, flush to the curb for at least 36 inches, so we don't have to deal with any ramps or whatever. And then back to the decorative metal railing and canopy system, similar to what we were proposing before. Essentially the same thing, just much shorter. So it's 8 by 19 feet is the space that we have there, and that's essentially it. I mean,
And it's per his email, it's not on a trailer. It's just a framed
correct.
Wooden deck.
Yeah, because the trailer that we had, like, it's impossible to put it there. The sidewalk slope pretty steep there, so there's no way to get a ramp and make room for all that stuff.
Yep.
The trailer was a cool idea we thought in the beginning, because at the end of the season we just hook on it and take it away and store it, but that's not worth it anymore.
Right.
It's too much trouble.
And how to get there?
Could you point out the picture where the deck is going?
Yeah, it's gonna go it's gonna go starting about here to about where the end of that triangle space is, right, Joe?
Yeah, exactly.
So it's gonna be about the length of a parking space versus before it was gonna be 2.
And you're just gonna like cover the sidewalk?
Nope, it's gonna be in the street and
Okay,
level with the sidewalk.
okay,
They
okay.
have to make sure that it's accessible.
Joe, remind me about how long you expect this parklet to be in place.
It'll be 8 by 19 feet is what we have for room, and that's right to the end of that white paint is what I measured before our last meeting. And that leaves us 20 feet plus that Corey's okay with to the sidewalk per state standards.
My question was more toward the length of time that you expect to leave it there. Not a permanent funk.
No, I think there's an established season for parklets, right? So we would like bring it in and whenever that is and take it out when we have to take it out.
Yep, they're allowed to be through October 31st. It's on the application form on the second page, but that's also just it's by the ordinance. So they're permitted from April 15th through October 31st. It has to do with the plowing, the typical plowing season.
And both entrance and exit onto this thing is through that 36-inch wide entrance, and that's kind of the only way you get on and off this.
Yeah, that was, so this picture here is a little bit deceptive. That sidewalk has quite a bit of slope to it.
Yeah.
The bridge has slope to it itself. Yeah, that one shows it a little better. So
Yeah.
it's gonna have to be, it's gonna be tricky even to get it, within ADA standards for 36 inches because the whole thing is on a slope and the deck, I was informed, has to be, I mean, we can only have like a quarter of an inch of out of level in the 19 feet. So I think we have just enough. The further it comes towards Elm Street, the steeper the street gets. So it makes sense to have that
Yep.
entry exit on the uphill side. That's more level than the Elm Street side.
And I assume you run this by Public Works, right?
As far as the placement of it, yeah, Corey said that as long as we maintain that 20 feet to the sidewalk, that meets the state standards, and he's all right with that. And
Right.
asked for restrictions on not blocking the sidewalk with loading and unloading, but we don't load or unload on Langdon anyway. That goes through the Elm Street door.
Well, the reason I asked is that Langdon Street is sometimes pretty jammed up, just normal traffic.
There's actually, if you look at this picture that's displayed right now, so that this end of Langdon Street flares way wide when it hits Elm Street to allow for turning in both directions. That was also in the email to Corey. There'll still be 26 feet of clearance from the edge of the parklet to the curb on the opposite side towards State Street. And he was fine with that as well.
Thank you.
How many tables do you anticipate on the parklet?
Haven't really figured it out, but I would say 3 to 4 loose tables, probably like 3. So we're gonna, in the design, I don't know how clear it is. It's really clear to me because I engineer in my head as I go. On the site plan for it, sorry, I'm trying to find it here. On the plan view, so that you can see a skinnier rail cap on the sidewalk side.
Yep.
So that's gonna be at like 42-inch railing height. And we were thinking that that would be where the tables would be placed close to that railing, so they could be actually served from the sidewalk. And then these slightly wider ones on the other 2 sides would be also in place, built into the railing system, but we would have, those would be at 42-inch and have like bar stools around on those 2 sides for people to be able to sit and set their stuff down on that slightly wider. I wouldn't really call it tabletop. It'll probably be like 12 or 16 inches or something.
And there are railings that go all the way around except for the little gateway.
Yep, exactly.
And the curved sunshade is on the sidewalk side.
Langdon, yeah, Langdon Street side.
It's on the Langdon Street
Yeah.
side.
Because that's where the afternoon sun comes in that direction
Yep.
Fiercely.
versus sidewalk here.
Yep. And then the 1 inch square tubing basically completes the rectangle all the way around to be able to be rafters for the sunshade
Exactly.
as well as
Yeah, I'm gonna have a center support and then we added that like the full structure. So in order, if we deemed that depending on the length of the sunshade, it may come a little further, then I drew it in here with the magic marker on the top. Didn't do it exactly to scale, but that's, 3.5 or 4 feet. My idea is the lower part of the sunshade will be above people's line of sight, so it won't be, you won't be looking through it.
Yep. And then are you gonna paint the steel or are you gonna leave the steel to rust or are you?
Planning to leave it raw,
Yep.
actually, and let it just do its thing.
Yep. And then what sort of like wood cap like for your countertop and wood cap?
I'm actually not 100% decided on it yet, but I just sawed up some live edge cherry and ash this summer, and I was thinking we might use that for these. Possibly not for the narrow cap. We might just do something straight there, like
Yep.
a PT 2x8 or something. But for the wider ones, I'm kind of hoping to work that because we have live edge bars inside the building too, so it's kind of fits our
Yep.
thing.
Yep. And the decking is also PT.
Yeah.
And I guess there's no density requirement for the railing because it's below 30 inches. I'm thinking about like stuff going into traffic. Like
Yeah,
normally there's a 4 inch opening that
we'll have enough, so we don't have to comply with the 4-inch spacing, but we will. I mean, this is like we discussed before. This is just a rough kind of.
Yeah.
We're gonna do it as we go, but we're definitely gonna make it so that little kids can't sneak out into the street and get
Right.
run over. I mean, I'm gonna.
I don't even know if we have any jurisdiction or legislation over that, but
I did. Michelle had emailed me in their prior design with the trailer deck and said that if it was gonna be above 30 inches, we had to have that
Right.
spacing, but
Right.
if it's not, technically, we don't even need a railing, so. But obviously, we won't. for
Obviously.
Practical purposes.
Right. Somebody trips or,
Yeah.
steps out into traffic.
Yeah, and it
Unexpectedly.
makes for places for people to set their
Yeah.
stuff down, which is important
Yep.
for us.
Yep.
Just a little side thought. I don't know if the liquor license might have requirements for the spacing there too. Might be worth just double checking with. I know that with other outdoor areas just for control. So that might give you a minimum size issue too. It would be different from Michelle's for the building code, but
Right.
just worth double checking with them.
Liquor department's getting involved in how we build stuff now. That's good.
The outdoor service.
Right.
The outdoor service area, I know that Charlie O's had to make some tweaks to their sort of outdoor area.
Yeah,
that were
I know we
design
do have, so we
specifications
do
for them.
have the outdoor because Langdon is,
Yeah.
barricaded off at times. So we do have the outdoor
Okay.
thing.
So just
and
double
and
check
we
with
know
them.
of some of the restrictions, but not in particular
Yeah,
for a park.
I don't know the particulars, but it
Good
doesn't
idea.
hurt to just double check with them.
Yes.
Yeah, I think it has to do with why it was different for Charlie's. It has to do with whether your drinks are being brought to you by a server or whether you as an individual get your drink and walk out. I know you
Yeah,
know.
and that's I don't know exactly. It sounded like this might have be a mix.
Right.
So.
Yep.
Yeah, I don't think we're allowed to,
I thi-
customers won't be able to carry alcohol across the
Yeah.
sidewalk to get on the parkway.
Yeah.
Right. That's
But you'll be bringing anyway. Just doesn't hurt to double check. That's all I thought. 'Cause I know it's not something that's mentioned in the parklet application process. I
Mhm.
don't think they threw that
Mhm.
in
Yeah,
as one of the things that the city manager has to consider. So I don't want them to approve something and you set it up and then suddenly get in trouble with the state. That would be bad.
any other comments, questions?
No, I'm fine.
Nope.
I have just a couple. Um, one, this seems like to be a great thing and well situated because, there's oftentimes I'm coming home late from work and you'll be the only institution open and they'll be in the only place that's playing music. And when the summertime, when that window's open, that'll be a great spot to also expand the seating and patronage out there. Because you're open later than other places, do you know that the lights, the solar lights that you're proposing will have enough capacity to keep lit, at a usable level later into the night?
I think so. We have, done that and I'm not the lighting expert, so Carice couldn't be here. She's out of town. But we've had a couple of events down there and they're just simple solar string lights that have been on the bridge, in the past. And in my opinion, that works well. I don't see where it would be at all unsafe. And we have outdoor lighting on the building, which is gonna be roughly 8 feet from the parklet. So I think without any additional lighting, it would be pretty well lit just to sit it there. I'm not sure if there's any city lighting there or not, but that's where people step outside of Bent Nails and go across Langdon to smoke. And every time, I'm a smoker, every time I've gone out there, I've never felt like it was dark outside. I don't know. We have our lights, but the city may have a street light there as well.
Do you want me to do a quick share screen of just the Google Street View?
Sure.
So Bent Nails has their lights. There's lights here at the entrance and then at the windows.
Also on.
And
the
there's,
corner up
yep,
here.
there's one here at the sign. And then the sheriff's parking has a street light there across the street. I don't know if there's one. Yep, and there's one here on the other side of Elm. So there's quite a few lights.
Yeah.
In the
Yeah,
area.
it looks like the ones on the building are likely to provide adequate ambient lighting. Maybe a candle at the table might be sufficient for anything additional.
I mean, for our type of establishment, we don't want floodlights on the deck for people to be hanging out doing their thing. So, but we certainly don't want it so dark that people are tripping on stuff as well, so we can just add more. We have plenty of framework in this new design to have 60 or 80 feet of solar string lights. And the solar thing is just because we don't want to get into trying to run power and tie it into the building and all for obvious reasons.
And then the other question is just a procedural one in terms of, how, in terms of approving something that is, that where you say that there's a lot of kind of figuring out as you go. Like, I mean, maybe this is a question for you, Meredith, or someone who's been on the board longer. Like, how do we, how is there any? Do we have any contingencies or concerns about that?
Well, Meredith and I just discussed that prior to the beginning of this meeting, feeling some of those similar concerns that this is as a creative project, the drawings don't necessarily reflect all the details and therefore creates a little bit of an awkward precedent for us going forward as to how we might defend our decision around this. That said, it is not a permanent thing. It is a parklet that comes and goes. And we kind of reviewed the language around it, and it isn't necessarily required to have all these drawings as well detailed as we might be accustomed to. Gives us room to sort of ask for more information or sort of, kind of work with the applicant to be able to make these decisions. I too feel a little concerned about the amount of creativity that is going to go into this that we don't necessarily know what's going to happen. That said, I also am excited for something like this to happen in town and believe that it not being a permanent structure, there's a little bit more flexibility on that subject.
Can I weigh in briefly, Ben?
Yeah.
So the other thing to keep in mind is this is not a zoning permit. It's a parklet permit that the city manager is going to be issuing. It's good for a set number of, I think for a set number of years, and then it has to go back through reapproval through the city manager. And if anything really changes during that approval process, it gets put back through the full review. And it's, it's coming to the design review committee because city council and staff, said, we really want to make sure that design review still has a part in this, but it's not a permanent structure. It's not attaching to any of the buildings. And so this is sort of a hybrid approval where you guys are giving your input and it's not actually going to me. I ferry it through to the city manager, and the city manager brings all these different comments into play before the city manager makes the decision. It does this particular one, and most of the parklets in the city do need flood hazard permits. But it doesn't actually need a zoning permit because it's in the public right of way.
So I might add one thing. I said it at the last meeting, but I don't think you were in attendance. So the reason for leaving this open window of flexibility is because Aaron and I intend to fabricate this decorative railing system ourselves, and I'm a excellent fabricator, but I'm not an artist. So it's everything that he has done. I've never seen anybody have any offense to any of the art that he has in and around the establishment. And I'm sure we're not going to build something that anyone is going to think is other than cool. And I mean, we could certainly, I could submit something to one of you guys when we kind of get to that point if we needed to, but essentially it's just the pattern of how we're gonna wrap this thing with the rebar stuff that's not drawn accurately on the drawing.
Yep.
It's not a permanent structure, and it goes away and it gets back for review. I'm not really concerned. We could ask ourselves a question: how bad can they screw it up, and see if
I agree, Eric. It's Liz.
And if so, how long will it be bad?
Yeah, my fears are not that it's going to be bad. I don't actually have that. My fears are more just precedent for us making decisions that we can defend based on information provided.
I think, Ben, that's a good thought. And I think it kind of depends on, what the project is and, what the consequences of a mistake is.
Right. And in this scenario, feels like the consequences are fairly low for a mistake.
I would think so. And, it's pretty standard structure, kind of a structure, treated deck with square metal posts or railing and a cap on the railing.
Yeah, I certainly don't imagine this particular case is going to be an issue. Just if anyone in the future says, well, how come I need all of this when they don't? Just have to be able to say that, justified in this way.
Yep, exactly. And I feel like we do have that justification, but and I am thankful Joe put a little bit more effort into this than what we saw last time. So it feels like I feel like I have the information I can make a decision with.
I'm comfortable with the information, even though it's minimal. But it covers the essentials, how high the railing is going to be within a range, what the materials are going to be, where the gates and fence are going to be.
Any other comments? Do we have to make a motion or we just vote?
You need to go through your
Oh,
recommendation form, right?
we get to go through this first. Right.
Four might
I,
be.
I had just one comment.
Yeah.
I was wondering if they might have the railing design available for our next meeting, or is that not something that seems reasonable?
I don't think we'll have it that soon. It's kind of a thing that I'm not really sure we're gonna, because the season is getting shorter now. I mean, depending on how long it takes to finalize this process, we may not actually place this parklet for this season because we have till October 15th. So we'll have to see how long the process takes. We may start construction in the meantime, but not mobilize it till next spring.
Okay, thank you.
I think, and in following up on Liz, I think, if we're available as kind of an advisory thing, anytime you need it
Okay.
at a regular meeting.
I mean, so I don't know if you can tell from the drawings, but essentially we're just gonna have a fairly small gauge rebar as like the containment system to, just mostly for safety, but also something that looks a little different and cool. It's just a matter of like the placement of that on the railing that I think is not gonna happen until we are there to look at it together and see what looks the best. And that's Aaron's input because he's an artist and I'm not. It would all be square if it was up to me.
Mhm. All right. Well, so the areas that this seems to apply to is not applicable for historic structure. It's not applicable for new construction. It's seasonal. Existing buildings shall be recognized. Seems not applicable. Proposed landscaping, none is proposed. Location and appearance of all utilities, no utilities. Oh, wait, there is.
Well, fencing. That one sort of applies because we're sort of talking about fencing.
In the railings.
Yeah.
That's what you're thinking.
It's a little weird because is it fencing or is it railing? It's a little of both.
We're fencing in humans, so they can't
Right.
get away with their alcohol.
I would call what this railing is acceptable. If you do come to a moment when you feel like you can share with us what it looks like, we would
Yep.
love to see that.
Yep.
There are no alterations to building. Let's see. Can't respect of views to the State House, not applicable. Parcels with both river frontage and development shall be oriented to both the river and street facades. are primary, not applicable. Height, it's not very tall, not applicable. Proportion seems to fit within its where it's the city says it is, but it's not necessarily in comparison to a building, not applicable. Rhythm, again, not there's no windows or doors, so not applicable. Roof shape and equipment. There's no roof, no equipment, not applicable. Architectural features including but not limited to cornice, windows, shutters, fan lights, tablature, trim, and other forms of molding or character defining detailing prevailing on the existing building shall be considered in the alteration of the building.
This was the one, the new construction about making sure new things reflect the existing in the area. That's the only thing there that I was thinking might be something you guys would consider for that criteria. But features on the surrounding area. It's usually for new buildings. This isn't a new building, but just it's really whether or not it fits in with the area is kind of what it's saying.
I mean, I think it certainly fits in with the business that's established there. So I'm going to go acceptable. Roof drain systems, no roof, not applicable. Signage removal, there's no sign to remove. Not applicable. Outdoor lighting and fixtures. The structural design or outdoor lighting fixtures shall be compatible with architectural design and function of the building and compatible with the neighborhood. I think your strip light idea on the underside is certainly acceptable. Landscaping and screening and site furnishings, projects within the design review overlay district shall be subject to the landscaping requirements in section 3203, shall consider the following. Site furnishings, including fencing, seating, and other types of site furniture visible from the street or side yards. Does landscaping obscure or undermine key architectural patterns or elements on historic buildings? Mechanical and equipment screening. I took a look at all the chairs and stools that you had proposed. They seem totally adequate. I assume others did too, but they're nothing out of the ordinary. This is not a new building, so nothing is required there. Scale and massing, not applicable.
This is all new building stuff.
Oh, all.
That's the only one that might apply is that accessory buildings and structures. It's kind of this is a new temporary seasonal accessory structure. So that criteria 22 on the list is the only thing that might be something to consider.
New accessory buildings or structures shall be located within either the side yard or rear yard and shall not visually disrupt the streetscape or affect the integrity of the existing building or proposed new building.
I don't think this is applicable because it doesn't fit within a side or rear yard.
Yeah, it's a weird one where, I mean, somebody could maybe propose some really crazy, huge parklet that was really tall and could impact how you're seeing some, some building right next door. That's one of the reasons that planning really insisted that design review still apply. But in general, it's hard to fit that one in.
The side yard there is a little bit damp.
I marked it as not applicable.
I do want to go back to the architectural elements and just, for the record state that I think that the shade cloth is a good color that will not be, it won't, it's not going to be really distracting because that's going to be a long line when you see it from a distance coming down the street. And I think that the lighter color is really appropriate.
Yeah, we don't want a darker color because the darker sunshades absorb heat and then radiate it to the occupants on the other side. So I voted for white, but I think tan is a little classier than white. White just is more functional.
The tan, I think, yeah, either would fit, I think, with the paint scheme for the building. and doesn't distract from the dark paint of the bridge right next to it.
Perfect.
You could meet in the middle and have stripes.
They do make about 14 different colors, so we could just get narrower strips.
Big plaid.
Do we make a motion to vote?
I'm gonna vote
Yeah,
that
they'll
one
still
down.
need a vote.
Right. Do I hear a motion to accept to wait
Approve.
to approve the application?
So moved, says Eric.
Any seconds?
This is Martha, I say second.
People would like to vote?
Eric says yes.
Martha says yes.
William says yes.
Liz?
Yes, I thought I said, you didn't hear me. I
Sorry.
say yes. That's okay.
Yep. And Ben says yes. Project is approved.
So if you
Thank you.
can record the vote on the bottom, the back sheet of that.
Bottom of the
that's
back sheet,
Your name. Yep, so
vote. Right, vote is 4-0,
5.
5-0.
5-0,
Well done.
yes. Sign and date,
Great.
and then I'll have you sign under Ben's signature on here. And I will package this all up. And eventually they'll get recycled. Keep one.
If you can sign right here, Joe.
And I'll make sure to include the, I didn't include it in here, but the image of the solar string lights that you had in too.
No.
No, I got it. And I'll package this all up and send it on to the city manager's office with everybody else copied. I'll try and pull everything in. We will need to do a river hazard permit. Just because, but it's gonna be a simple one. So I will get you that paperwork too.
Thank you, everyone.
Thank
Thanks a
you.
lot.
I assume you're here regarding the bridge and, which is not on our agenda, but that's okay.
It's, yeah, I'd already gotten it all published on the website, so it'll be under
Perfect.
other business. You can do minutes first if you want,
No,
or
let's do
do
this.
them. Okay.
Come on up. Please.
Yes. And make sure if you speak into the microphone.
Okay. Hi, everybody. My name is Vivian Ladd Tomasi, and I'm here representing Montpelier Alive and Montpelier Alive's Bridge Illumination Project. I'm not sure to what extent you're aware of this project or where you want me to begin.
0, we're aware of 0.
Right, then I will.
I gave people these packets that showed up. And yeah, give your presentation and I can show things.
Okay, well, starting at the beginning, I came on staff at Montpelier Live. I'm in 2023, and I had been thinking for a long time that Montpelier, which was founded, as we all know, at the confluence of 4 rivers, is a city of bridges. There are actually 23 highway, railroad, pedestrian, vehicular bridges in this town. And they are, I think, an underutilized resource. And I had thought for a long time that lighting the bridges would transform Montpelier cityscape. I apparently was not alone in that thought. A lot of people have thought about illuminating Montpelier's bridges. And so in 2023, I worked with Montpelier Alive to explore the feasibility of the project. I've been working with historians, local historians, to get to know the significance and histories behind the bridges. We have worked with a local professional lighting company, the lighting company that's responsible for the Shelburne Museum's Winter Lights show, to talk about the project and what we needed in terms of infrastructure, what the costs might be. And last year, we decided as a pilot project to light the Langdon Street Bridge, and many of you may have seen that installation. So through that year's worth of research, we determined that there was great potential here. After the flood in July of 2023, Langdon Street was really languishing. It was very dark. That street is historically dark. And many people assumed that it was closed and nothing was open for business there because it presented as very dark. And once we lit that bridge, that part of town was transformed. And we heard over and over again from business owners on that street that that bridge really saved them after the flood that winter. And that it became kind of a beacon for holiday shopping. It is the sort of center of nightlife and there's restaurants and bars and music scene there. And the bridge kind of seemed to kind of proclaim that Langdon Street was open for business and that it was the place to be. We also discovered that when the lighting system failed a few weeks early, that electrical infrastructure was going to be pivotal to this project. So at the end of 2023, we applied for a grant through Better Places. It's a state grant through the Department of Housing and Urban Development. And it was a $40,000 grant to help us install the electrical infrastructure on several bridges downtown. Our goal was potentially to light in 2024, this year, 7 historic bridges. The 3 bridges downtown, the Rialto, the Langdon Street Bridge, and the School Street Bridge, as well as 4 bridges along the Winooski, the Bailey Avenue Bridge, Taylor Street Bridge, the Main Street Bridge, and the Granite Street Bridge. Part of that grant required us to crowdsource a third of the budget. It was a $40,000 grant, and we met that goal almost instantly. It was so fast. The supports for the project was so widespread that within a month we had met our crowdsourcing goal. And so that, if we actually can go back one, that funding means that we were able to install electrical outlets on Granite Street, Taylor Street, Main Street. We were able, the city actually repaired the gas lights that sit on Bailey Avenue. This is just an image of Montpelier at night. And you can see our city's kind of dark in the wintertime. And in particular, all of the connectors from one side of the city to another, from one neighborhood to another, all of those bridges are dark for many, many months in the wintertime. So that funding also will allow us to light the bridges right in the center of downtown. If we could go to the next slide. The original concept for the bridge illumination project was to install seasonal temporary lighting. So we would lease the lighting systems from the New England Holiday Lighting Company and install the lighting in November and then take it down in February, in keeping with the 90-day lighting ordinance that exists here in the city of Montpelier. So for 2024, our goal for the Rialto Bridge was to essentially highlight the fact that a river runs through it. Many people actually don't notice that there is an entire river running through the city of Montpelier. Maybe that's not true anymore. But a few years ago, I can't tell you how many people I stopped on Langdon Street and asked them, did you notice that there's a river running through right underneath 2 lanes of traffic, 2 sidewalks, and a building in downtown? And people were often surprised by that. So the goal is for the Rialto Bridge. Can we get the next slide? It's not the most attractive bridge, but this kind of, it really illustrates the connectivity between the city and our watershed, the way that it sits over this water. So the idea was to kind of illuminate the space between the Rialto and the river. The next bridge along is the Langdon Street Bridge. And, whoops, we'll go back one. So, yeah, no, you're right. You're right. So for the Rialto Bridge, given the fact that events of last week, we realized, can we go back to that Rialto Street Bridge? Rather than trying to light underneath the bridge, it is our goal to avoid the floodway at all costs. And so now it is our hope to actually install what we call they're called programmable RGB wash lights, and they would be installed. Do you see the wider kind of, exactly, those wider panels in between the urn-like shapes that form the banister of the Rialto Bridge? We would install a light in the center of each of those that would actually downwash the bridge and kind of reflect off the water. And you can see in the next slide just kind of what that might look like. The idea here is to install programmable lights so that we could potentially change the colors, change the effects. But for the initial winter season, we might do something just kind of very tasteful and soft.
Sorry, I think the theater is doing something really noisy upstairs to get ready for their
Got it.
show.
I see, I see. So in any case, so downwashing the Rialto Bridge is the first iteration. Then a little further along, the Langdon Street Bridge, once again, we want to light it similar to how we lit it in 2023, except that in addition to the Langdon Street Bridge is essentially wrapped with Christmas lights. Again, thinking that it was a temporary installation. If we think about it as a more long-term installation, we are also thinking of wrapping it with a set of, again, programmable lights where we can change the colors in conjunction with different events taking place in the city. The next bridge we'd like to light is the School Street Bridge, which is the next slide. In 1927, both the Langdon Street Bridge and the School Street Bridge were destroyed in the flood, and they were replaced at the same time. So they're kind of sister bridges. They're both pony truss bridges. And since School Street is a little bit more residential, our thought was to create, to design the lighting here so that it would echo the Langdon Street Bridge, but in a much softer and quieter way. Throughout this project, our goal is to light these bridges. The design for the lighting of each bridge is designed to either amplify its function or to draw attention to its design or engineering or its role within the city. And in addition to thinking about the bridges individually, we're also thinking about how the bridges kind of talk to one another in space. So have dialogue with one another. So here where we have these two sister bridges, we want to kind of point out that similarity, but also respect the fact that School Street is in a quieter area. On the Winooski, the Main Street Bridge is it's a continuous, I always forget the phrase for this. It's a pretty utilitarian. It's a continuous steel beam bridge. It's pretty utilitarian. It doesn't have a lot of architectural panache, but we're going to take advantage of the structure of this bridge. In the next slide, you'll see that the railings are made up of many vertical metal pipes. And so the plan is here to attach a wash lighting system on the outside of the railing that will reflect on all of those vertical posts. And it will create essentially two arcs of light that, if you think about in terms of like vanishing points or perspective, will actually draw the eye into downtown Montpelier, essentially ushering people into downtown. And Main Street is really our, the central artery into the downtown area. So I just have a picture here to kind of show what like wash lighting looks like in succession, especially the slide on the left. You can see that light reflecting on those vertical posts. And once again, this is programmable lighting, so the colors can change with the seasons in conjunction with events happening in downtown Montpelier. And I'll talk a little bit more about that in a minute. Moving along the Winooski, Bailey Avenue is actually very similar to Main Street, except that it does have a series of decorative lampposts that are identical to those in downtown Montpelier. So in this winter, we are only planning to wrap those light posts with garlands that are wrapped in lights, just as we do downtown throughout the downtown area. But perhaps next year, we might install that same kind of wash lighting system outside the railings to provide that same kind of programmable lighting system. Finally, the final two bridges that we are talking about here are the Taylor Street Bridge and the Granite Street Bridge. And these are really the jewels in the bridge illumination crown, these kind of monumental truss bridges. So Taylor Street, for our first iteration this winter, the idea is actually to line the trusses and to accentuate the Parker through truss design with strings of C9 Christmas lights. And C9 Christmas lights are the big lights that everybody knows from their childhood. They're kind of like the big, I don't know how you pronounce it. They're kind of candle shaped. And they'd be attached with magnets, so they won't affect the structure in any way. They can be installed and then taken down. And so this heavy industrial structure will actually be transformed into something very lacy and ethereal. And I found a slide of a bridge elsewhere in the world with a similar kind of treatment. It will not be anywhere near as dense as this, but just to give you a sense of that kind of lacy effect that kind of lighting will achieve. But our ultimate goal is to install permanent lighting on both the Taylor and the Granite Street Bridge that's more like this. And this kind of lighting is actually programmable RGB track lighting. And the track lighting has tremendous versatility. It can be any color. You can change the color within the track. As you can see here, part of the track is red, part of it is blue, part of it is white. It can generate effects, but this type of lighting has to be attached in a very durable and rather permanent way. Of course, nothing is permanent, but this track lighting is attached with a commercial grade adhesive. And so it is a little bit difficult to remove. If you do remove it, it probably would pull off the paint, but the track lighting comes with a 20-year warranty. So the idea here is to do something that really would be permanent and that would last. If those bridges need to be painted in the future, that's not a problem. The lighting can be taken out and the tracks can be painted the same color as the bridge, and then the lighting can be reinstalled. So I just wanted to give you a sense that Granite Street Bridge is next. Actually, to just give you a sense of that track lighting, the track lighting is about 2 inches wide and it's about 1 inch tall, and it comes in black and brown and white. Unfortunately, it does not come in industrial green, but this is kind of what it looks like. So that's the larger kind of scope of this project. But we actually have sort of 2 installations that we're talking about right now. And I'm here today, to share the project with you, but also to get your feedback, to kind of your advice. In addition to the Better Places grant, we have raised money from local donors. We also have a pending grant before the Vermont Arts Council. The Montpelier Arts Commission has pledged funding to this project. And in late June, we were given an opportunity through the Department of Tourism to apply for a $150,000 grant to support this project. And that grant required that we think about this lighting a little bit differently. We had been thinking of 2024 as the year when we would install temporary seasonal lighting from November to February that would be installed in November, taken down in February, to give the city a chance to see if they like the lighting, if there's support behind the project, to give us a chance to see what's really impactful, what maybe is less necessary. But this grant opportunity came along, and it really required us to think about the installation in a more permanent in a more permanent way. And to think about the bridges as a way of marketing Montpelier as a destination. And so we started thinking about bridge lighting not only as a seasonal event, but perhaps as a way to amplify everything that Montpelier does. So perhaps for a couple of days in February, the bridges go pink for Valentine's Day. Perhaps in June, for a short period of time, the bridges are rainbow to celebrate Pride Month. Perhaps for July 3rd, for a couple of days, they go red, white, and blue. So that Montpelier becomes a place that's really exciting visually all year round. We're not talking about lighting the bridges 365 days a year. All of the lighting will be on a timer so that the bridges are only lit when there's activity downtown. We want to respect the fact that people love dark night skies and they like to sleep in the darkness. And we also want to respect the natural world and animals and creatures that need dark skies. But we also think that there's great potential in this project to really transform Montpelier cityscape into something really dynamic and exciting through the artful installation of lighting. And these bridges can be a kind of an armature for light installations that can change and grow and kind of respond to what's happening in the city for years to come. So my understanding is that bridges fall into a funny place in terms of zoning and regulation and design review. They're not really buildings. And so I don't think there's the same kind of rules around, you know, I know when you put a nail in a building, you have to get permission for that. We really want to be very respectful of these structures. Primarily, this lighting isn't going to impact any of the structures, except for 3, Taylor, Granite, and the Rialto. So if we go back to the Rialto Bridge, in order to install that down lighting and to do it safely and responsibly, we would need to put a few bolts in the sidewall of the Rialto Bridge. There'll be 5 boxes on each of those wide columns, and each of them require 2 bolts. The bolts are 2 inches deep and about 3/8 of an inch wide. We also would probably need to run a conduit along the bottom edge of the banister to just kind of connect the electrical wires between those 5 boxes. The New England Holiday Light Company is a very professional light company. They work for museums and historic houses. They work clean and neat, and everything would be installed according to safety standards. So that's one potential impact on a bridge, kind of physical impact. And then there's the issue of the 2 truss bridges and whether we feel comfortable installing a track lighting system with either screws or this commercial grade adhesive. My personal belief is what I would love to do this year, for Taylor Street, I would actually love to try the temporary installation for 1 year because I'd love to see that lacy effect with those C9 Christmas lights. It's not the most efficient way to light the bridge because we have to pay to have the lights installed, then to have them deinstalled, and then if we decide we want to go with the track lighting, to reinstall the track lighting. But I would like us this year to install that track lighting, perhaps in a more minimal way with maybe a light hand on the Granite Street Bridge so that we could see it and we could, as a community, you know, have a sense to see what that bridge looks lit and have a chance to see throughout the year what it's like to change up those lights, to change up those colors, to animate that bridge. And if we do like it, then perhaps to commit to doing it as well on the Taylor Street Bridge. So just the goals of this project, just a couple of things I just want to say. The goals of this project are not just to do something pretty in Montpelier. I mean, there is a beautification element here for sure, but it's also part of kind of a larger scale marketing campaign on behalf of Montpelier Alive to bring some economic vitality to Montpelier, to draw visitors here, to see this spectacle, to create a spectacle here that makes people want to come to Montpelier to shop and eat and dine. It's our hope that if the bridges are lit at night, people might want to stay a little longer into the evening when they come for an event, that they want to come often to see how the bridges change over time. Certainly lighting the bridges makes for greater pedestrian safety throughout the city. And finally, I think lighting the bridges in this town particularly celebrates our resilience from current events and kind of celebrates the commitment that this town has to community and connection and building bridges. So there's a lot of potential metaphorically here and visually to kind of rebrand Montpelier as kind of the place to be through this wide scale kind of transformation of our cityscape. So I think that's it in a nutshell.
I have kind of a basic question.
Sure.
What are the provisions for maintenance?
Excellent. That's a great question. So built into our budgets currently, we have built in for throughout 2025 ongoing maintenance for all of these installations. It is Montpelier Alive's commitment to build bridge lighting and the maintenance of bridge lighting and paying the electric bill into all of Montpelier Alive's budgets. So every event, every occasion, every grant that Montpelier Alive writes will include money for the bridge project. So it is Montpelier Alive's commitment to take care of those bridges and those installations and the electrical bill, which will be very minimal given the fact that it's LED lighting and it's very energy efficient.
My story on outdoor lighting is that they attract bugs, and the bugs attract spiders, and spiders build webs, and that can turn into a real mess. So that whatever your installation is, it may require cleaning.
Yes. Yes.
Maybe it's just going up there with a split broom or a vacuum or a leaf blower, and what I don't know whether that'll happen or not, but it did in the operation I was involved with. And
I hadn't heard about the bugs before, but certainly the cleaning and the maintenance is always going to be an issue, and it's certainly part of the budgets that we have generated for this project, and it's our commitment to continue to maintain those bridges. That track lighting, periodically will need to be cleaned. And so, as I said, maintaining the relationship with this particular lighting company, it's an ongoing relationship, and we plan to secure the funding for that from year to year, and to make that our responsibility and not the city's responsibility.
and my concern is that nothing is, well, some things are, but if something is not maintained, it gets dirty, lights are out,
Exactly.
it's very bad. It's like when there was a period when Montpelier didn't really maintain the planters downtown.
Right.
And that was years ago, but they look so bad.
Right.
Of course, the cool thing about lights is you can turn them off.
Exactly. Yes, and Montpelier Alive is considering lighting as an extension of their beautification budget. And so just as it funds the flowers downtown, it will continue to fund and care for these lighting installations.
I think the idea of doing the Taylor Street Bridge temporarily, at first I said, if you're going to do it, just do it. But I thought seeing what that would look like, because it's a little hard to visualize what that's going to look like.
Right.
I have some concern, Vivian, about both the Taylor Street Bridge and the School Street Bridge, because there are people living very close to there, and the light effect in terms of their comfort in their own homes. But you talked about this being programmable. What does that mean in terms of how long you expect these lights to be on?
So first of all, the lights will all have timers, which can be adjusted seasonally, because there's no point in lighting a bridge unless it's dark. And here in Montpelier, it is dark at 4:30 in November, and it's dark at 9 o'clock in July. So that would all be programmed into the timer so that the bridges are only lit. And even then, for instance, when I say that the bridges will be lit in conjunction with downtown activity. So as we talked about earlier, Bent Nails is one of the businesses that stays open latest. So perhaps Langdon Street would stay lit much longer than any of the Winooski bridges. If there's not activity in downtown, if it's not part of the kind of vibrant time period in which people are coming and going and visiting and eating and going to the theater, the bridges do not have to be on. They can be off, or they can be dimmed, or only a few can be, only, some of the lights can be lit just for additional safety. What's really nice about lighting something like the Taylor Street Bridge or the Main Street Bridge or the Granite Street Bridge is that it actually provides a safer way for people living on the River Street side of Montpelier to walk into town.
Mhm.
Currently, those bridges are so dark, and it's very forbidding, actually, for anyone who might want to walk into town, just even for dinner at 7:30 or 8 o'clock at night. So we would be able to adjust that accordingly, and we would be happy to take input from the community about what feels like the right amount of light and what doesn't feel like the right amount of light. The beauty of the track lighting and the programmable lighting, you can make them softer, you can make them brighter, you can light them all up, you can light only a few of them up, you can make them different colors. So all of that is possible within that kind of lighting system.
And who's going to make the decision about when it's lit? and when it's
Montpelier
not?
Live in conjunction with the lighting company. We will have all of the, the capability to change those lights, to turn them off, to adjust them as needed.
Well, one of the suggestions I have is that you think about is setting aside money to take everything down, clean it up at the end,
Well,
so that the city isn't stuck with a non-functional light system. The other thing that the system needs to be flood-proof.
well, I don't think anything is really flood-proof, and electrical devices probably more so than others. So that remains a risk. I mean, if the Langdon Street Bridge or the Rialto Bridge is underwater, those lights will be damaged. But if that happens, those lighting systems are not particularly expensive and are not, it's not so prohibitive to replace those, should we choose to replace those. Taylor Street and Granite Street are higher, and the lights would be higher, so they're less likely to be impacted in any way by flooding. But you're absolutely right. Langdon Street and School Street, for instance, are very close to the street. So those lights are vulnerable to being cut, to vandalism. We have a contract with the lighting company that they periodically visit during the times when they're installed, and that they replace those lights if they are damaged. And the track lighting system on the Granite Street and the Taylor Street Bridge will be cleaned periodically. They don't need to be taken down. They can be cleaned kind of on site.
I have a few comments and questions, and
Sure.
so I think this is a wonderful idea. I've walked into town to see the Langdon Street Bridge lit up I think it was in a couple of different formats. Like one was a different one that was installed.
A couple of years ago, the Arts Commission lit the bridge and they had a different kind of design for the bridge, but they also discovered that without sufficient electrical infrastructure, that it was challenging to keep it lit and in place. But we have since we have connected that bridge to the city's electrical grid, and we have installed outlets on that bridge that are now durable. We also have a standing relationship with the city's electrician to, if anything should happen to the electrical system there, that they will come and service that as part of their installation.
Yeah, it seems like generally a wonderful idea. I think that, you know, like everybody, well, probably 90% of the people are very passionate about the bridges in town. It seems like an exciting way to coordinate with, as you said, with events, you know, and to as a highlight, I think it's an opportunity to show that, you know, the Montpelier, despite being a historic little town, has a technical sophistication that, you know, that matches, I drive over this, you know, or pass by the Zakin Bridge plenty when it's being lit seasonally. So we're like following in these other major metropolitan areas. I do, you know, I guess one comment is that that I would encourage, like, thinking about how the lighting of these things affects the perception of both the bridge and the river. Like the wrapping the Langdon Street Bridge, it actually obscures some of the detail of that bridge, like how it's the kind of the W section that it's made out of, and it seems like there's ways to potentially highlight that detail. I mean, I've climbed on that bridge since I was a teenager. You know, I'm very, 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 very fond of it, and also too, like having so many lights, kind of like, you know, right in your eye level too. Like if it's being lit towards the street side, it can be harder to look out into the river at night. You know, which can be really great when the moon is up, and just to get to see the river flowing there when everything's quiet. So sometimes it might be great to have it on the inside and also then switch it to the outside as well, because that's wonderful to see to be able to see from a distance.
Right.
I live in the meadows, and so when I'm walking the dog at night, sometimes I'll see I would see the bridge lit up down in downtown. And then the question is, for just kind of a detailed question you're talking about the Main Street Bridge and highlighting the pickets and the rail. Were you going to be lighting that from above, kind of from the handrail side down rather than up from the street?
Yes, from the handrail side down and sort of shooting kind of sideways to kind of so that the light ricochets off of those, what did you call them?
Pickets,
right? So that, because the light has to hit something in order to show. And so it'll kind of rake those all along the edges of the bridge on both sides, kind of creating this sort of two walls of light.
Yeah. And have you worked, I mean, I wouldn't expect you to necessarily have this thought through yet, but the all the controls, yeah, like, is it going to be, I mean, I do work with these and coordinate these in buildings sometimes, and I know you can all be kind of controlled from one computer station. I don't know, with these remote sections, if you have Wi-Fi capability, so it's easy to upload a change from anywhere.
Yeah, I'm not exactly sure what the systems will be, but I have a feeling that you can probably do it from either a computer or potentially from a phone app.
Yeah.
That these, and you just, depending on which systems we're talking about. Some are probably a little bit more sophisticated and require a computer, and others might be a little bit more conducive to a phone app. But I
Yeah.
like what you said about the Langdon Street Bridge, and I just wanted to point out that, the lighting for the Taylor and the Granite Street Bridge is really designed to highlight the truss systems. So that the Taylor Street Bridge is a Parker through truss design, and the Granite Street Bridge is a Baltimore truss. And the lighting there will really highlight the structure of that engineering. That was the goal for those two bridges, and to have two truss bridges along the same riverway with very different truss designs, and to kind of to illustrate that and kind of a line drawing in light in the dark. That was the goal there. But for Langdon Street, where it is kind of the center of sort of the party district of town, focusing on the structure of that truss was less the objective than to call people like a beacon into that part of the city. And I think this year we will light it a little less elaborately than we did last year. It was a lot last year. So just having done that pilot project kind of taught us that we maybe want to take it down a notch. And then School Street would be several notches lower than that, respecting the fact that that will be very kind of, it'll be very light and very delicate. But still echoing in some way the Langdon Street Bridge.
Yeah, and those bridges, those two bridges certainly have the opportunity to, you can even conceal the lights within like the web of the structure, so that you're kind of washing the inside of it too. It sounds like that's not what you're looking for, but
yeah, the only tricky part, in terms of wash lights or anything in that place, is just how low those bridges are and how accessible those kinds of wash lighting systems would be to the public. So, so lighting them with a more affordable lighting system, recognizing that those lights are the most likely to get damaged, is also a consideration. But certainly there's lots of opportunities. Nothing here is really permanent. I think the whole goal is that this will be an iterative process, and that perhaps in time, we might even have artists submit proposals, perhaps to light the pedestrian bridges, or to, choose a bridge and have artists, come up with different concepts. But for right now, we're looking to get started with those 7 key bridges downtown.
and it's and I wasn't sure if your proposal was to, and I'm sorry that I don't remember all the names of the bridges, but you did show an example where there was a lot of like tons of individual lights on a bridge.
Right,
and
the Taylor Street Bridge, can we go back to that one? And there was too many on that one, but at least it was just the closest I could find to the kind of, it'll be much, much more delicate on the Taylor Street Bridge, that one. This one is really encrusted, but if you take out all that center, all the stuff in the center, you kind of get a sense of how lacy that will be. The idea here is to do the spandrel at the top and the bottom, to do the entrance and the exit, and then some of the diagonal trusses on the sides. So it'll be a much lighter application.
One thing I would suggest is no hole drilling in the bridges.
Yes, we were pretty sure that would not happen. Yeah, we are not encouraging that either.
Yeah,
But ultimately, if we are, as a city, if we decide we really love having our bridges lit, we do have to create durable mounting systems that will last. And that's kind of where I find myself now, needing to kind of commit. We have a little bit of a time crunch in that the lighting company really has to install this lighting the last week in August, because their holiday lighting season goes berserk starting in September. So we really have to commit to what we're going to do for 2024. So I guess, one of the reasons why I'm here is to kind of get your sense about whether lighting Taylor Street temporarily and lighting Granite Street with that permanent track lighting is the way to move forward, whether we feel comfortable with that as a city.
So can I just interrupt real quick to throw in one little curveball? So all of the bridges, except for the Granite Street Bridge, are in the design review district. The Granite Street Bridge is actually just outside of the design review district. So even if that installation were to require a zoning permit, that particular one wouldn't be coming to you guys for official recommendations. But I think that having that one be the first one to maybe have the permanent adhesive for the programmable track lighting gives design review a chance to look at that option before the switch to having Taylor Street Bridge have that in 2025.
Right. Right.
So it's a little, and maybe it's a come back,
Just- yeah.
next spring
Right,
to
and
get a
we have-
review. And like I said, I because these are public right of way bridges, it's a lot, and the exemption from needing a permit for lights because if it's lit for less than 90 days, whether or not design review even has jurisdiction over this is really tough. I don't even know if zoning has jurisdiction over most of these. So
I'm gonna hit on,
we want I wanted to make sure that you guys got input on this because you are the experts on how to deal with a lot of these.
on the fasteners. I'm sure they're clamps, or they're doing such wonderful things with adhesives these days that it's fine. And if you do adhesives and it pulls the paint off, it just has to be patched, that's all. But drilling holes is unacceptable.
I agree. No argument here.
But,
Yeah.
but the proposition is to drill holes at the Rialto Bridge.
No, oh yes, at the Rialto Bridge, we would need to drill some holes in the Rialto Bridge. Which
And that's,
I would just
that's
like to
permanent.
point out has a lot of holes.
Hmm.
in it
The Rialto Bridge is going to that is on schedule to have some massive rework by the state. I don't remember the exact timeline, and they keep having to adjust it because of different issues, but the Rialto Bridge is going to have state do a ton of work on that.
Right, so it will be rebuilt at some point in the next decade, regardless.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, I think I would say go for the permanent. It's gonna be a better, cleaner installation. It's gonna, it's gonna be less of an approximation. I just think it's gonna have a much better impact.
What's
I'm
your general schedule? Because I think easing into this and seeing how the public reacts is a good thing. I don't know, I can't remember, you've talked about what, 6 bridges?
7 in total,
Okay,
right?
I think kind of easing into it. Langdon Street is an obvious one.
Right.
And the Rialto, I think, is a good, obvious one.
And I do want to just say that we did spend much of 2023 talking to business owners, historians, naturalists, the city itself. We brought as many people as we could into this conversation, shared our thoughts on these designs, talked about the bridges and their significance for the town and the history of the town. So we feel like we've had a lot of community input, and it's just extremely positive. So we feel like we have that relationship. I think in terms of, we have a team of naturalists and historians who are trying to raise awareness about the importance of Montpelier's bridges as part of this project. So we're going to do an installation in the Walgreens window on the histories of our bridges and our watershed. There'll be walking tours. And when the bridges are lit in November, we hope to have a big community celebration with a lantern parade. So the idea is to bring as many people under this umbrella as possible. We don't want this project to be a surprise for anyone. And we hope that bringing attention to the bridges also kind of keeps us focused on our rivers and the work that we need to do for our town with our watershed.
I thought, was something I was involved in from a historic preservation point of view, working on bridges for years. And have you checked with anybody at AOT to see about their maintenance schedule, painting, or any other maintenance work they need to do on these bridges?
We're in
And-
conversation with Zach and DPW about that.
Yeah, I think,
About that relationship, yeah.
I think you need to talk not with necessarily with DPW, but with the AOT bridge program, because the AOT does most of virtually all the planning for any major work on the bridges, whether it's Taylor Street or Granite Street.
Okay. Then you've been trying to.
I mean, clearly you put a lot of thought into this, and I appreciate your artistic kind of efforts and not making them all the same and making them all have opportunities for doing different things. And I think it's a really fantastic idea. I'm curious just what we need to decide tonight, like what is this purely informational? But it sounds like there's something you're planning to hopeful
Well,
to move forward with something in August.
I feel that, when we're talking about.
In spite of all my questions, I think
Hold on, Eric. I don't know if you could hear that Vivian was talking. Hold on a
Right,
second.
before I, would feel comfortable, or Montpelier Alive would feel comfortable, endorsing putting bolts into the Rialto Bridge or putting adhesive on the Granite Street Bridge. I just wanted to talk to as many people as possible and just make sure that we're all feeling good about that. Yeah, so that's really why I'm here. And that's where my time constraint comes in. If you all feel comfortable with that, then I feel sort of more comfortable moving forward and endorsing that plan.
in spite of all my questions, I think it's a very interesting idea.
Thank you.
Yeah, there's not a permit application before me because so far none of these projects have actually triggered over into needing a zoning permit. And I need to go talk to my state people as to whether or not some of these even need flood hazard permits, even though they're technically in the floodways. It's not expanding like a structure or anything. It's these minimal light attachments where it's not going to add anything new to obstruct floodwaters. So I don't even know if it needs any permits from me at all.
Well, I greatly appreciate your presentation and your thoughtfulness about all the bridges and the ways of going about this, and built a lot of trust with me about how moving forward. And I'm all for drilling holes in the Rialto Bridge and putting stickers on the
Thank you.
other one.
Moving forward, I think Montpelier Alive just really.
Yeah, I appreciate you coming to design review with this for our ideas.
Well, thanks for having me. And moving forward, I think we want to remain in dialogue with you folks and with the Arts Commission and make sure that this all feels really unified and an expression of what we all kind of see for our town. So thank you. Thank you very much.
Thank you. It's a great idea. Next up is review and approval of meeting minutes from 7/1. Has everybody had a chance to review those minutes?
I have, and I'll make a motion to accept them the way they're written.
Do we have a second?
I'll second that, Liz.
Right.
I'm going to abstain because I wasn't there.
Same here.
That's okay.
Do we have enough? Just myself, 3? Yep. Do we have a vote to accept the minutes?
This is Martha. I say yes.
Liz, yes.
And I say yes. Great. Minutes are approved. Any other business?
Nope. Just that we've got the next regular meeting isn't until August 19th. So got a bit of a summer break ahead of
Yeah.
you.
Will we
Nice.
have a parklet in front of Bent Nails by then?
Probably not.
You don't think so?
Well, because they've got to fabricate it all. So it's gonna take a little time to build it, I think. I would love it if they could do that, but they still have to get the approval from the city manager. Right? So this is your recommendation goes to the city manager's office. But they're, getting input from several different departments.
Do I hear a motion to adjourn?
So moved.
And I'll second it.
All in favor of adjournment?
Martha?
I.
Liz,
And Ben.
That's everybody. I heard William.
Okay. Meeting's adjourned.
Yeah.
Thank you all.
Thank you, everybody.
thank you.
I.